We welcome you to another live edition of the Sports Box, brought to you by our friends at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and use the box at sign up for 10 points. And here we go.
Well, good evening, Sports Box fans, and welcome to another edition of the On Point Show. I am your host, Matt Zuccarello, along with the one and only BG, Brandon Gazzara. Not a good start to the evening, Brandon, with the Islanders down 2-0. But Brandon, how are you?
I'm good. That's news to me. Also good news for me.
Yeah, I'm in a new location this week, so shouldn't have any internet issues. I'm upstairs instead of in the bunker, but I'm watching the game in the background. So if you see me looking up, it's at a 2-0 deficit with 8 minutes to go in the first. Not a good start for the Islanders, looking to close out the Flyers in Game 6. Almost 2-1 right now, and big save by Carter Hart.
Anyways, you know who it is a good week for? Who's Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Oh, yeah, well, we'll get to that, too.
Signed,
after a quick word from make sure you check out our sponsors. Check out CrowdPlay. If you sign up for the CrowdPlay app, type in the box for 10 free points, and now we'll get right into it. So I'll let you continue with your football, with your Tampa Bay Bucks and looks like your TB12 hat on too as well, or some other type of design. It looks like TB12 or some type of 12 in there.
It is TB12. TB12 is probably very happy. He now has a new running back in Leonard Fournette, who I think brings the LeGarrette Blount / Sony Michel style to the Tampa Bay offense. Gives them kind of a short yardage between the tackle, goal line specialist. I don't see him having a ton of touches, but I do think he helps them on the goal line, scores a bunch of touchdowns, and I think Tampa Bay goes to the running back by committee, sort of like you saw in New England, where you had Michelle, Burkhead, White. It could be Fournette, Jones, McCoy, and certainly in the early going, I think they use all three of them. And if one of them really stands out, then you can see maybe a Fournette or a Jones taking over the job. But I certainly think it's a good move for Tampa Bay.
There you go. Well, we already got our first comment in. Drew Trammell, thanks for tuning in. Drew says, let's go. I'm drugged up and excited. Don't want to know what type of drugs he's on, but I don't know if he's excited, I guess, about the Flyer game, though, too. So good start for all you Flyer fans all around the nation, and especially in Philly area and South Jersey. It's going to be an uphill struggle for the Islanders, but we've seen them time and time again come back from deficits against this team in the series, so we'll see what happens tonight. Plenty of time to go. I'm actually really excited. If you are a Tampa Bay fan, and we'll get into some other things. So I know you want to go over like MVP predictions and division winners and maybe Super Bowl contenders. I mean, just with Brady alone, look what they've already amassed, though, too, with this team. I see him being a major contender in the NFC, and just adding another so-called weapon, too. He's relatively young. How old is Fournette? He's not that old, right?
24, I believe.
Unbelievable. So I heard he has some maybe not conditioning, more of a work ethic, I guess, for lack of a better term. So we'll see if he puts the effort in with that team. He could be a dangerous weapon for them and just another piece to the puzzle. As Brandon has his friend, his iPhone joining us. For Brandon, and the name for your iPhone. There you go.
I'm looking up the Fournette age. He's 25.
There you go.
He's still a young guy. A lot of tread left on the tires. He's had some injury concerns, though. But I don't think Fournette. I think he's 10 to 12 touches, short yardage, goal line type of player. I think he scores a bunch. So if you have him on your fantasy team,
there you go.
I think he scores 8 to 10 times.
There you go. What else would you like to touch upon? Since we'll stick with the NFL, as we'll go around the four majors, stick with the NFL. So go ahead.
So we're not going to have a show next Thursday, and it's the opening night of the NFL season. So I wanted to go through our division, NFL division winners and playoff predictions. So I'll start off. We'll start off. We'll go with the AFC South. So we'll do the AFC South, the NFC South first. and I have the Colts winning the AFC South and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning the NFC South.
I definitely agree with you on Tampa Bay for the NFC South. AFC South, I still think it's an open type division though too, especially with just there's no team, definitely not the Jaguars. I mean, is the
Houston.
Titans, Houston? I guess I could see Houston again, but the Titans would surprise me. I wouldn't say the Colts. I think it's either Texans or Titans. I'll go with. I hate to say, I'll go with the Texans too, just based on their quarterback play. But as you know, when they get to the playoffs, usually they somehow pack it in though too, or don't give their maximum effort. So
they are good for blowing 24-0 leads in the first half of playoff games.
Exactly.
They're pretty good at that. They
Yeah.
seem to have mastered it.
So I mean, the Titans would be the Cinderella story again if they came back this year and played up to beyond expectations like they did last year. But I'll stick with Texans in that division.
So Watson's the best quarterback in the division, but I think with the loss of DeAndre Hopkins, I do also think with that loss last year, you're up 24-0 to the Chiefs, and you end up getting completely blown off the field. I think psychologically, if you're the Houston Texans and you're on that team, you go, we were up 24, we get blown out, and we didn't really get any better. We lost one of our best players in DeAndre Hopkins, and if I'm in that locker room, I'm like, what are we really playing for? Like, we lost one of our best players, and we already got blown out by the Chiefs. Like, the Texans, psychologically, you're like, we have no chance to win the Super Bowl because we're not beating the Chiefs. And are you beating the Ravens, who I think are better than Kansas City going into this season? So psychologically, I think there's a slow start for Houston. I think eventually they kick it into gear, but I don't think that they win that division. I think there's some pullback there, and I think the Colts with that roster, they've done a very nice job building that offensive line. Jonathan Taylor's a real nice addition. You bring in Michael Pittman Jr., the wide receiver. You still have T.Y. Hilton. I like that team. Phillip Rivers is a stabilizing force at quarterback. He hasn't had a good offensive line the last few years in L.A. Now he has one, and I think that's going to help him a lot. He has a great running game with Mack and Taylor. I think the Colts win that division. Not easily. I think it's a tight division. I think there's 3 teams who could win it in the last couple of weeks. I think those divisional games will decide that division, but I think in the end, the Colts, with their offensive line and their experience, I think they end up winning it.
Great. I'm watching back and forth. The Islanders almost made it 2-1 on the power play here with just under 5 minutes to go. Give me another division. Hit me with your next division.
So the North, the NFC North, I like Green Bay, and the AFC North, I like Baltimore. So if you are a gambler as well, I have the odds here. Green Bay to win the division is plus 180. Baltimore minus 225. So I like Green Bay and Baltimore.
I'm going to go with it was flip-flop between Green Bay and the Vikings. I'm just going to go with the Vikings based upon their defense again. Another year, same thing. They'll probably get into the playoffs somehow. I think maybe beat Green Bay by a game, maybe last week of the season, and then be out in the first or second round of the playoffs. In the AFC North, same thing. I mean, a declining Pittsburgh team. You got Cleveland, who's an enigma. Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati might surprise with a couple more wins than expected this year, but I agree with that. The Ravens are too, with Jackson at the helm, should win their division again and maybe make some type of run this year. If Jackson, same thing, in the play gets to the playoffs, doesn't cough the ball up, and should be interesting to see him in another year of the season playoff experience, but getting to the playoffs and them taking care of that division. Not easily, but 2-1. There it is. 2-1, folks. Wait, hold on. Brando, you know what I got to do?
We have breaking news here on the Sports Box.
We actually have a lot of breaking news this evening, but we'll just start out with anyone who's watching the Flyers Islanders. 2-1, 3:27 left in the first. Big goal for the Islanders to mount a mini comeback. as we also have a thunderstorm, possibly tornado, passing through Hamilton again. Brandon, I don't know if it's near you, but I hear the thundering in the background. It's not just my stomach. We'll have a lot of breaking news tonight, though, too, as we get into basketball with actually both of our teams making some headway today. But we'll save that after we finish up with the NFL. So,
yeah. So we were talking
next
about
divisions.
No, but in the AFC North, Baltimore I think is a runaway. I mean, I think they're a juggernaut, best team in football last year in the regular season, and I do think that continues. They added Calais Campbell. They also added J.K. Dobbins, a running back I really like from Ohio State. I think Lamar and that offense and the Ravens, I think they cruise to that division. Green Bay. It comes down to they have the best quarterback. I think Chicago and Detroit surprise a lot of people. I'm not as high on Minnesota with the loss of Stephon Diggs. I do think there's some pullback there in Minnesota. And I think you could see Detroit or Chicago surprise some people and be in that wild card mix. But I think in the end, Green Bay, I don't think they're a 13-win team again. But I think they're closer to that 10-win area. But I think Green Bay ends up winning the division. Then the West, the NFC West, the AFC West. AFC West, I mean, Kansas City. I mean, come on, the Super Bowl champs, Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, you really don't have to talk too much about that. I mean, I agree. There's no, I mean, who's going to give him a maybe the Broncos, but that's the only team I could say. But I know that you're on the lock. I mean, but I don't see much more than that.
Yeah, and then in the NFC, Seattle. So both Western divisions. Each conference, I think the two best players in football. And so that's pretty easy decision-making for me. The best quarterback, I think both teams win their divisions. I think Seattle, they added Josh Gordon today. They brought him back. I don't know how much he makes them better. He doesn't make them worse, but they don't have Jadeveon Clowney. It doesn't look like he'll be going back to Seattle. But Russell Wilson, we still got Lockett and Metcalf, and if they can keep Chris Carson healthy, when they had their running attack last year, I mean, the last 3 weeks of the year, all their running backs got hurt, and they struggled a little bit. But I think if they can keep their backs healthy, they'll be a force to be reckoned with in the NFC.
Yeah, I definitely the best quarterback, especially as we saw in the playoffs last year with the Super Bowl with Garoppolo, and then with Goff, though, too, who just can't get it together in the postseason. But that's an interesting division, though, too. Seattle definitely made the moves, and you would think, obviously, with the best quarterback on paper. But I don't know. I'm going to take a shot here, though, too. I think San Francisco obviously doesn't come back to the year. They still have a good year. But I'm going to go with the Rams, though, too. Same thing, regular season and then be a pretender in postseason, though, too. Just in a tough division. I mean, don't even count out Arizona with Kyler Murray and that team, just the excitement, though, too. So you have three relatively young quarterbacks, and then the seasoned veteran in Wilson. So I agree from an offense standpoint, but again, I don't like Schottenheimer at all. He's very conservative. He puts a lot on Wilson's shoulders in the fourth quarter, and you've seen Seattle defense. They've looked horrible in games against the Eagles. First half, they do nothing. Literally, like it looks like they're not even playing. Like they're not even trying. So that team has to be frustrating. And I just think another year as Wilson gets a little bit older, maybe gets banged up a little more this year. You can't just put it all on his shoulders to scramble around and have him rack his throw or scramble for 20, 30 yards and put them into field goal or a game-winning touchdown situation. So I believe the division will be close, and I'm going to
think we're having some audio issues with Matt. But yeah, so we're talking about Seattle Seahawks. I like the Seahawks. They added Jamal Adams.
Now you're off, actually, on my screen. So I'll continue. Oh, there you are. We're both back. I don't know if it was the lightning in the background that hit, but we're both back. We both were spinning for a couple seconds.
Yeah, so I'm taking Seattle. I mean, Jamal Adams, they added a playmaker on defense. They still have Russell Wilson. So I like Seattle. But I do think that's the deepest division in football. You got four good quarterbacks, real young quarterback in Kyler Murray, who I think takes a big step forward with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins. I think it's an exciting division. I think you'll see a lot of points scored, but I think in the end, the best veteran coach and veteran quarterback, I think they end up winning a tight division. And then the East. the NFC East and the AFC East. I have the Eagles in a very narrow margin, and we'll get to that in a minute. And then the Buffalo Bills in the AFC East. I don't buy anyone else in the AFC East. Miami, I think, is a year away. The Jets, I believe Adam Gase can win 10 games when I see it. And
Or when he sees it. Look at the eyes.
Yeah. Those eyes. And New England, I think, is a massive pullback team. They lost 8 players have decided not to play for New England. You lost Van Noy, you lost Landon Collins, you lost Tom Brady. I don't see how this team is anywhere close to what they were last year. They had 8 players back out before the season started. They don't draft particularly well. They don't have one dynamic player on offense. Your best weapon is Julian Edelman, who led the league in drops last year, and let's be honest, is reliant on Tom Brady. So I think there's massive pullback with the Patriots. I think the Patriots are a 6 or 7 win team at best. Cam Newton will keep it exciting and at least entertaining, but I like Buffalo in the end. I think the roster and the coaching is too good.
This is, I mean, like I said, I know you're still a big fan of Darnold, and I'm starting to buy into the wagon, but a little bit more offense this year, hopefully, and it's open. Again, it's the Jets, so I'm not going to pick them, especially it's my team. I'm not going to be biased. I will say Buffalo. I think Miami surprises a little bit, and I think the Jets do as well. I mean, I think New England could be the worst team in the division this year. You know, especially the older.
I agree there.
Yeah. So that gives the Jets the most fair shot, but I say they probably get typical loser game, that the must-win game towards the end of the season, and finish second to Buffalo. In the East, the Eagles still have too many question marks for me. I still look at the Cowboys roster compared to the Eagles, and a lot of Eagle fans may disagree, but I still think there is some more holes with the Eagles. But again, the Cowboys have proven time and time again that they can either win big games or win big games in the playoffs. So I'll still take the Cowboys to win the regular season in a relatively close division with the Eagles. But again, I don't think Washington or the Giants are going to be pushover teams too. They're not like giving me wins on the schedule, especially interdivision games. So a lot of people may think that. So I see, like I said, I see the Cowboys beating the Eagles by maybe a game or so. You know.
Yeah, I think it's very close. I actually think that there's 2 teams in the playoffs from the NFC East, the Eagles and the Cowboys. But I give the Eagles the slight edge just because of the quarterback advantage. And we saw it last year. I mean, the Eagles were badly injured, badly bruised at the wide receiver position at the end of the year. They got on the run, and they were still able to overtake the Cowboys in the division. The Cowboys did add CeeDee Lamb. They added some nice pieces on defense, but the targets that went to Randall Cobb, there was 87 targets that went to Randall Cobb. Those go to CeeDee Lamb. So it's not like they added Lamb to Cobb and Gallup and Cooper. No, they replaced Cobb and added in CeeDee Lamb. So I don't think there's as big of a leap there in the passing attack as some might think. But I don't buy Dak. Did not win a game last year against a playoff team. He struggles in those games. I think 1-7 against teams 500 or better. So I don't buy Dallas as a division winner just because of their quarterback. And the Eagles have the advantage there. And I think with improved receiver play, if they can keep Deshaun Jackson healthy and fortify that offensive line, which right now we've relied on it, been a top 5 unit the last 4 or 5 years. It's not even a top 10 unit right now. And they lost Brandon Brooks. They lost their left tackle. Jason Peters refuses to play left tackle. He wants to play right guard. So there's some issues there. But I think in the end, the Eagles win a tight division. I think they finish 10-6. So I think the Eagles win the division. Brian says Randall Cobb stinks. Horrible take there. Well, he had 87 targets last year and 817 yards. So I don't think CeeDee Lamb just jumps in and has 110 targets and 1,000 yards. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the production that Cobb had goes to CeeDee Lamb, and I don't think that there's that big of an increase there.
Well, I think
Lamb's the better player, but the production is going to be just about the same.
Right. I just think Cobb falls off to another year under his belt. He's probably in his, I'd say his 30s, early 30s at least.
Well, he moved on to Houston, but I mean, you replaced Cobb with Lamb.
Right.
The production is.
Yeah, and we'll say, and like I say, yeah, Prescott. I agree. If Wentz has a typical year, he'll have a better season than Dak. Brian says they will throw more to a better receiver because he's better. But
well, then you're running less with Ezekiel Elliott.
Right. Again. Yeah. So just to finish up football, and this sort of segues in, Jamie, thanks for popping on as well. He says Russell Wilson MVP. So we'll get to your MVP predictions. Who's your top 2 or 3 guys out there that you see this year?
So, I mean, Russ, I think, is always a good pick. He's never received an MVP vote, which I find almost to be impossible, just how good he's been the last few years. But 2 years ago, Mahomes had the unbelievable, crazy all-time year. And then last year, Lamar Jackson with the, crazy stats. So, Russell Wilson really didn't have a chance, but he was amazing. But I'm going to go with Tom Brady. He's plus 1,600 on DraftKings to win the award. I actually have money on it. So, I just think with all of those weapons, he has something to prove. I think that offense is going to be electric. I think you could see him throw close to 40 touchdowns, but, the 36 to 38 touchdown range is where, realistically where I think he finishes, and 4,800 yards. And it's going to be a high powered offense. They're going to score a lot of points. So in the end, I like Brady. As a dark horse, though, I like Kyler Murray. I mean, with that offense, they're ton of throwing. They're going to throw it a ton with Cliff Kingsbury. They added DeAndre Hopkins, so I think that'll be exciting. But in the end, I'm going Brady.
I was going to say Brady at first. I mean, he's going to be, I think, in my top 3 or 4. The only reason for some reason I see them like either being up a lot of games or 2 and then doing more running in like the second half of games. So he's not going to throw, 3 or 4 touchdowns a game. I just have that feeling though too. So I see big numbers, but not super big numbers. So I think Jackson doesn't take a step back. He doesn't have the year he does last year. So I'm going to go with the other obvious choice in Mahomes though too, and just see if he can follow up a Super Bowl year with another year with the same type of weapons under his belt. I just see him being more dynamic again if he stays healthy, because I think, remember last year I predicted him getting hurt in that game against Denver, and you called that out. To get hurt, he almost got seriously injured in that Denver game in the first half, I think, or second half. I might be confusing with Russell Wilson, but I thought it was Mahomes. So
yeah, he had an ankle injury going into the game, could barely walk, and they ran a quarterback sneak with him, and he dislocated his knee and only ended up missing 2 weeks. Thank God for them.
Right.
But yeah, so I mean, I don't foresee that happening again in terms of injuries. But I think with Mahomes, there is a little bit of pullback, just with a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover early on.
Yeah, but I'll still take him in a close race with Brady. Again, throw Jackson in. I think I'm trying to think of the dark horses. I mean, I haven't been with everything going on. I haven't been following too much, so no preseason or everything with football. So I'm sure there will be. Yeah, Kyler Murray is a good underdog, as you mentioned, and maybe Wilson or one of these other seasoned guys, or maybe even Rodgers though too. That he has a big year, that they rely more on his arm and him throwing the ball down the field to win some high scoring affairs. So we'll see. But
is there any non-quarterback that you think has a shot to win the MVP? We haven't seen it happen since Adrian Peterson. Is there a defensive player, a wide receiver, a running back that you think could make a run for the MVP?
Yeah, I think just like when guys are throwing, the quarterbacks have an advantage when they're throwing 3, 4, 5 touchdowns a game for like a receiver, unless you have a wide receiver that's going to catch, 80, 90 balls or 100 plus for 1,500 yards and 15 plus touchdowns. I mean, that would be someone that makes them make it. Or I said, go with Dallas in terms of, you mentioned Ezekiel. If they rely heavily on him, and he has a lot of touchdowns and rushes for 12, 13, 1,400 yards, maybe. But I just don't see it in this offensive-minded league with these quarterbacks that are dynamic. A couple guys that we mentioned. it's just an offensive-minded type of league, and the quarterback usually stands out. Same thing with Super Bowl MVPs as well as we've seen in years past. So I don't see anyone that, off the top of my head right now, that would be in the running for MVP besides quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I generally, I think if it's between a quarterback and a wide receiver or a running back, I generally pick the quarterback just because of the value of the position. But if there is one guy that I would choose to have an outlandish season, kind of like a Michael Thomas last year and McCaffrey, we didn't really get a ton of MVP buzz, but in that same vicinity would be Devontae Adams. I think he has a fantastic year. He just has to stay healthy, but he's a touchdown machine, and I could see him having upwards of 15 touchdowns, 12, 13, 1,400 yards. So I think if there was a player who's not a non-quarterback to be in the MVP discussion, I think Devontae Adams, for me, would be my choice.
One other thing I want to throw out there before we move on from football is I just saw something recently. Is Kamara being traded? Talk on the trade block. What's the latest with him? And
so
if
I don't think he gets traded, but he was back at practice as of yesterday. So he's back practicing with the team. So I'm assuming the expectation is there's going to be a deal that's worked out. I could not in any way believe that they were going to trade him. They're going all in right now with Drew Brees. It's really the last year of Brees' career. So I couldn't see them trading their second best offensive weapon because you can't work out a contract when you're going all in with Brees. They're going to figure that out. They're going to keep Alvin Kamara there. And I think he's going to get locked up. They need to win a Super Bowl this year, and if not, then the window is closing. And if they don't win this year, jam shut, because Drew Brees retires, and you got to replace a Hall of Famer. So I think they work that out.
Well, hopefully he doesn't get locked up though too. I know he was tongue in cheek though too. But one thing on football before we move on, since we're already halfway through the show, and I want to just touch upon NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs, what's going on with the new coaches with the Sixers and the Nets, and then finish it off with a little bit of baseball. But what's your take? I guess I got my take first on the Peters situation with the Eagles. And again, I know he's Hall of Famer, tackle that but no one signed him though too. So to get that type of money, people may disagree with me, but you're helping your team out. If it's just about the money, we're a team that basically picked you up on what you did. I mean, if I was the Eagles, I wouldn't give him another dime. Either put him at the position that he was signed for. But again, a guy gets injured in pretty much any sport, in hockey, as we've seen, in football, in other positions in football, in baseball, or a guy moves from second base to outfield to third base. You're under a contract. It's not like you or me working for someone that, someone else went down the two. I'm not going to pitch in and be a team player. I mean, you basically, again, I know athletes are held to a different standard, but I think it's absolutely ludicrous that he wants more money to play a position that he used to play, that he's not as good in as he was, and he's past his prime, obviously. No one picked him up. The Eagles gave him out of need, obviously. So I'm beyond words or two, but I think he should either play any position that on the line that the Eagles tell him to, since he's on the contract, or just cut bait and let him go. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I don't think there's any chance that they could let him go. I don't think the Eagles have that type of leverage where they can say, if you don't play left tackle, we're releasing you. They need Jason Peters one way or another, either to play right guard or left tackle. He's their best option. He is their best option to play left tackle now with Andre Dillard out for the season. And I don't see them moving Lane Johnson over. So, look, Jason Peters was not getting signed. No one wanted Jason Peters. He took $3 million with the Eagles to play right guard. There's a reason why the only team that wanted Jason Peters was the Eagles, and they wanted him to play right guard. And so Jason Peters signed that contract. So he knew what he was getting into. Like, there wasn't a market for Jason Peters, right? So now he comes to the Eagles. He's a left tackle by trade. That's what he does. And Andre Dillard gets hurt, and they ask him to move over. He refuses. Okay, don't play left tackle. But I mean, it's not a good look for Jason Peters. They need him over there. And it's not good for the Eagles either. I mean, Matt Pryor played 3 snaps in his career. I mean, they're going to struggle. They're going to struggle there. And this Jason Peters thing, like, I don't understand. Like, if you're Jason Peters, who do you think you are? Like,
Yeah, I agree.
no one wanted him. No one wanted him, and they're asking you to move over. Move over. Like, if I'm on the team, if I'm watching week 1, and Chase Young or Ryan Kerrigan for the Redskins is just destroying the left tackle, which is probably going to happen, which is what defenses are going to do. They're going to move their best pass rushers over there and come after the Eagles from the left side.
Yep.
And Wentz is getting destroyed, and they can't run the football because every play is getting blown up in the backfield. I'm going to look at Jason Peters. It's not going to be Matt Pryor's fault. Jason Peters should be there, and he's not being a team player. And
yeah.
I think it could cause some issues inside of the locker room if they struggle on the left side of that line.
Yeah. And I said I just wanted to get your opinion on it, and we'll close the book out on football with that. Also, again, just prefacing, if anything, my whole house just shook with a little bit of lightning and thunder in the background. So just in case we lose connection, we're going to continue on, though, too. But there is a storm in the vicinity of the South Jersey area, so everyone just be on alert. I guess we'll move on to basketball with some exciting series, some surprises, and different things going on in the playoffs. Haven't watched too much, but I've caught a couple of the games. What's your take so far, and who do you see? I have one team in mind that I think is going to be tough to beat, surprisingly. But your take so far in the playoffs, and the Nets signing Steve Nash to be their new head coach, and the Sixers with Tyronn Lue. Your thoughts on everything?
So, I mean, I think a surprise is how easily Boston has gone through Toronto so far. I thought Toronto was going to – I thought this was going to be a long 7-game series that, came down to 1 or 2 possessions late in Game 7, but that so far hasn't turned out that way. Boston's really, really played well. Jason Tatum has taken the next step really in the superstar level. He's been fantastic. That's surprising to me.
And up 10 so far tonight, by the way.
Yep.
At halftime.
It's not surprising to me that the Lakers made short work of the Portland Trail Blazers. And the Houston Rockets finished off the Oklahoma City Thunder last night. That should not have had to go 7 games. Harden and Westbrook, their entire career, the story on them has been poor decision-making late in playoff games. How did they get to Game 7? Harden and Westbrook, poor decision-making late in playoff games. In the end, their talent and they're good enough where the Rockets ended up winning the series because Oklahoma City is a team people thought were tanking coming into the season. After losing Paul George, trading away Russell Westbrook. This was a team that did not look like a championship, like a playoff team. And Chris Paul, who was fantastic in this series, got this to a Game 7. But how about the Nuggets coming back?
From Denver.
From 3-1 down to beat Utah. That was impressive. Jamal Murray was phenomenal. Donovan Mitchell was too, but Murray in the end was better. He got the upper hand. Your prize for Denver, you get to play the Los Angeles Clippers. So that could end poorly for them. I think it does. But you mentioned Steve Nash and Tyronn Lue. I like the Nash signing better than the Lue signing, because in the NBA, it's all about making your stars happy. Steve Nash, obviously, it was a move that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving signed off on. So if they're happy and it works there, I think it works out well. And he was on that Warriors staff. He did have some insight into that Warriors team with Steve Kerr. So I like the Nash signing. The Nets bringing in Kyrie and KD next year, to go along with Spencer Dinwiddie, DeAndre Jordan, Karis LeVert. So that Nets team could be dangerous. Kevin Durant, if he's healthy,
yep,
best player in the world. So I think the Nets are a team to be reckoned with. And Ty Lue, I think the Sixers have shown you. I mean, you got Joel Embiid the last couple of nights when Miami's playing and beating up on Milwaukee. That Joel is on Twitter. He's not very happy. He wanted Jimmy Butler to stay in Philadelphia. The Sixers chose Ben Simmons over keeping Embiid happy and having Jimmy Butler here. So I think this Ty Lue move also says to me that they're picking Ben Simmons over Joel Embiid. Not that I agree, but that's the way that it seems to me. And I think in the next year or so, we could see Joel Embiid shipped out of town.
I say this is the guy give Lou, I'd say a year or 2 year with this roster, and maybe even this year if one of those two guys is going. I just have a feeling maybe it's at the end of this year, maybe it's a package deal, maybe it's like Horford, which we won't get much from. We've talked about that a couple weeks ago. Maybe it's Harris packaged in with one of the young, Thibault or something like that. That too, that you don't want to give up and really build upon. But I just have a feeling that this is the year with a coach, a new coach that's going to try to 2-2, by the way. Islanders just tied it up. 2-2 with their fourth line. Sorry, I got a little excited there. 2-2 early in the second. But the national move, I agree. That team, I was going to say, Brandon, with everyone healthy next year, the Nets are going to be a top four team in the East. I really, I'm sorry, in that division. I mean, they didn't finish seventh in 7 games on the 500, but they had the 3 of the starters basically injured for and didn't play in the playoffs. So look out for them next year on the National too, who's inexperienced coach, but I mean maybe gives them a good chance to develop with especially with some top players. The surprise in the play, I'm not even gonna, I'm going to throw this out that I see Boston getting out of the out of their division.
The East.
The East. Okay, so going against. I say Houston gives the Lakers a run. I told you in last round. I know Portland, one game they looked interesting though too, but I say it's the Celtics versus probably the Clippers. But as a backup, don't be surprised if the Rockets get by the Lakers. It's going to be a tough series there, but I'll go with Celtics Clippers in the finals.
Yeah, I like that pick. I think in the end, the Lakers' length down low with Anthony Davis and LeBron, I think in the end, the Lakers end up winning the Western Conference. And I don't really think the Rockets have much of a chance. I mean, they have no length down low. And the Lakers' game is Anthony Davis and LeBron with their size and their strength, scoring down low. And I don't, Houston doesn't have anybody who can defend that. With PJ Tucker, he's 6'7".
Right.
So I think Anthony Davis has a huge series. LeBron as well. He was fantastic the last 3 games of the Portland series. But I like the Lakers really in 4 or 5, and I think the Clippers and the Nuggets. I think that's a little bit of a longer series. The Nuggets are a good team, but I think in the end, the depth of the Clippers and Kawhi Leonard, he'll be the best player on the court every single night. I think they end up winning that one in 5 or 6. And the East, look, I think Milwaukee ends up making a run in this series and takes it 6, at least 6, probably 7. But I don't know. I mean, Giannis is the best player on the court, and they lost 2 in a row. It's weird. He's only playing 35 minutes a night, and typically your stars – in close games like that, if you need your stars to play in the playoffs, you're playing around 40 minutes a night, and he's only playing 35.
Right.
I do think he'll get stretched out a little bit more, from this point forward. I think they'll play him as much as they need because it's do or die at this point. And I think in the end, I think Milwaukee ends up winning the series in 7 games, and then Milwaukee and Boston. I think Milwaukee will be overmatched by the variety of options that Boston has offensively and the defenses that they throw at them with Brad Stevens. And I like Boston and the Lakers in a good old-fashioned 80s matchup, and also a couple years in the early 2000s with Kobe and the Celtics matching up. But
there you go.
Yeah.
By the way, just to update any of you who are watching or tuning in, so the Flyers challenged the Islanders' goal because the goalie got semi-interfered with, even though the Islanders' offensive center was tripped up on the play. The goal stood, and this is the 3rd challenge in the series that the Flyers have lost and now are down. Islanders are back on the power play with 18 minutes early in the second, score tied at 2. Yeah, so like I said, I'm going to stick with the Celtics winning relatively easy this round. Maybe Toronto takes a game from them. Milwaukee, it's gonna be a tough uphill battle, but I see, like I said, the Celtics just right now on a roll. No one, maybe even winning the whole thing. So we shall see. To be continued on that. Going to briefly, like I said, touch on hockey though too, since I'm watching right now. Big pivotal game for both, obviously, the Flyers and the Islanders. Islanders looking to close out the Flyers now tonight. The game tied, like I said, early in the second. Some other surprises though too. Dallas and Colorado going to 7. Colorado's lost a couple of key players, and the Islanders just missed an empty net though too to take the lead. And my phone's ringing though too at 8:11 at night from Trenton. But I don't know if the Islanders get by this round. I mean, Tampa Bay is going to be very tough. It looks like Tampa's going to the Cup, but in a COVID-filled year, don't count out the Islanders if they get by the Flyers because of their scheme, their coach, and the way they've been playing. I mean, if anyone who follows hockey has been watching them, they just took the lead. They just took the lead. It's unbelievable. This team down 2-0, now up 3-2. 17 minutes still left in the second. Isles up now 3-2. So there you go. Like I said, if they get anything's possible. If they get by, I mean, Tampa Bay is going to be, they're the powerhouse. They'll be the big favorites. But again, this team, I'm telling you, just something about them this year. I'm not really big into superstitions, but I've seen this run before. To get a little bit serious for a second, I mean, my dad was following the Islanders since their inception and passed away 5.5 months ago. So I really think this is a run for him. Called me sappy, called me just superstitious, but who knows? I mean, this could be a magical type of year. So I'm just pretty excited that they made it this so far, and we'll see what happens. And then the Game 7, it's going with Colorado and Dallas to Game 7. And then Vegas lost last night, but they should close out Vancouver this next upcoming game. I like either team. If it's Dallas in Game 7, I like Dallas going into last night, but they lost. So Game 7, anything could happen, even with a Colorado depleted team and their backup goalie or the third goalie, actually. So if Colorado or Dallas gets by, I see one of them moving on over Vegas, who will probably be the slight favorites over one of those teams to play most likely Tampa Bay in the Stanley Cup. Your take or any take on hockey?
Yeah, I mean, Tampa Bay is fantastic, and I Tampa Bay and Vegas would be my picks, and they're the favorites. I mean, the most talented teams. I will take Tampa Bay and Vegas.
Gotcha. And then lastly, which more moves, which I haven't been following too much lately, was at some Mets with baseball. Do you like your Phillies, who are somewhat, I don't say the contenders yet, but I mean, their Workman still scares me, even though he was the closer on the Red Sox, and he sorry, watching as the Islanders have a semi-breakaway shorthanded and just missed taking a 4-2 lead. What do you think of Workman? What do you think of the move picking up former other Yankees reliever? Can't think of his name now. I just pitched last night.
David Phelps.
Yeah. David Phelps. So your thoughts on the Phillies' moves to try to shore up the back end of their bullpen and their chances going into this 8-team playoff tournament in both divisions?
I mean, the Phillies had the worst bullpen of all time, and certainly the worst bullpen in the major leagues right now. And they went out and they added 4 relievers. They made it at least formidable for now. They went from the worst to if it's just average to slightly above average, I think that's a gigantic upgrade. They lost a few games already due to the ineffectiveness of the bullpen. So it certainly helps them. The offense has been fantastic. I love what the Padres did. They seem to be the most active team almost every year. They brought in Mitch Moreland, Austin Nola, Aaron Nola's brother, to be the catcher. They trade for Mike Clevenger. I mean, they did a lot, and they shored up that rotation with Clevenger. I still think in the National League, it's the Dodgers. They're the best team in baseball. I think they run away with the National League, but I don't think there's a second best team in the National League. I mean, there's the Padres, the Braves, the Cubs. I don't really buy any of those teams in the postseason because of, for one reason or the other, whether it be starting pitching or offense or bullpen. I mean, the Phillies. I would throw the Phillies.
The Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, I throw the Phillies in that mix too, just because of their offense and the way that Nola and Wheeler have been pitching. There's 4 or 5 teams that are just really fighting for the second best team in the National League, and none of them have a chance. It's the Dodgers. It's the Dodgers League. The American League. You have the Rays, the Yankees, the A's. So you have 3 legit contenders
Keep
for the
going.
pennant. For the pennant
Cleveland,
there.
White Sox, and the Astros.
Yeah, I don't buy any of those in terms of winning the American League. But I do think the Yankees, when they get healthy, they're still the best team in the American League. And I still think we're in line, even after all of the moves that we saw for the Yankees and the Dodgers to end up in the World Series.
Again, I just think it's another weird year. The Yankees, all the injuries, they might be there. Tampa Bay wouldn't shock me, or even Cleveland, one of these other teams. The same thing, like I said, in the maybe the Cubs. I mean, maybe a team like the Cardinals, who I always don't even know 3/4 of their lineup, and somehow they find ways to win. So it wouldn't be a shock. I mean, the Dodgers look like, I watched them a couple games even against the Giants early in the year, and just blowing late inning once or twice, blowing 1 or 2 run lead in the 9th inning with Jansen, though, too, who's again another year older. He's not the same dominant type of closer that he used to be. So I think it's up for grabs in most likely that scenario, but I wouldn't count out those second and third teams in both divisions possibly making it to the big dance, especially with the depleted team right of the Yankees, who should get healthier hopefully by the end of the season for the postseason. But in this shortened year, that could have a major effect on them though too. So we shall see. We'll see what happens though too.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Jansen. So in the last couple of years, he had taken a step back. Last year, he pitched to a 3.71 ERA. So far this year, though, he has been absolutely lights out. He has a 1.13 ERA.
Not the game I watched.
So the slight downtick in velocity that you've seen from him the last couple of years that seemed to really affect him, he's picked it right back up in terms of effectiveness, and he's getting a lot of outs. I think in the end, the Dodgers are too deep offensively. Corey Seager is back. He's finally back and healthy after the Tommy John surgery, and he's been fantastic. Bellinger hasn't gotten going quite yet, but I believe he'll get going. Justin Turner just went on the IL, but the Dodgers are so deep offensively. They're going to score runs, and Kershaw, he's been great.
Any surprises so far this year? Team-wise, player-wise, have players having a big year, having a bad year? Your thoughts?
So team would be – I thought the Cincinnati Reds would be better. I actually picked them to win the Central. They haven't been quite as good as I thought, especially offensively. Trevor Bauer's been better than advertised. But I thought the Reds would be better. And Christian Yelich has been nowhere near the MVP level player he had been the previous 2 seasons. He's been pretty bad, really, when you look at his numbers. He's hitting 205 he has 9 home runs, but he's only hitting 205. He's struggled, and the Brewers aren't very good. I think that's surprising because Yelich was arguably the best player in baseball the last 2 seasons, in totality with all his numbers, and probably wins the MVP last year had he not gotten injured towards the end of the year. So his early season struggles in this shortened season certainly are surprising to me.
I watched a little bit of the game earlier before we came on with the Phillies Nationals game, and Soto just batting over 300. I think he has 11 home runs and like close to 30 RBIs now. So he tied the game earlier, and I think the Nationals had the lead. So no major. Again, I am not watching games day in and day out, but it should be interesting and fun and different type of finale and playoff season. So we shall see what happens. Before we go, I'm gonna just pop on our sponsor, CrowdPlay, to show you a quick clip of them, and then be back to finish up with you. Everyone, take a look at this. Sorry, wrong one. So again, check out our friends at CrowdPlay. If you have a chance to download the app, sign up for 10 free points by adding the box to the app. Anything else? I'll be able to catch most of the rest of the hockey game. They're midway through the second, 12 minutes left. I was up 3-2, out shooting the Flyers 17-7. Hopefully you'll tune in. I'm actually watching my horse race right now, who's sitting third as they're heading into the stretch. So going to give you a little harness racing take here as well. As she moves into second, and she's finishing up really well. I'm going to just lose by just over a length or two to finish a good up second. So we'll take that for tonight. Nice purse check in the account. Anyone who's interested, as many of you might know, that I do avidly follow harness racing. I will be driving again in the bike in Central Jersey, a Freehold and the Meadowlands over the next couple of weeks. So coming down to the track, you're allowed to mask up and socially distance outside. If anyone's interested in coming down to either play sports, play horses, or come watch me and maybe win a race and join me in the winner's circle. Including you, Brandon.
Sounds fun.
Any final thoughts for this evening before we before football starts next week? We won't be on next week. We might be on one of the pre telecasts on Wednesday night. But any other final thoughts on any as a roundup on any of the leagues?
Yeah, so I mean, just switching it back to football was the main topic of the show tonight. I mean, we went through our division picks, and I do have a Super Bowl prediction since we won't have a show next week to make that on the first night of the show, on the first night of the season. So in the NFC, I'll just run through my playoff teams for each conference, and then I'll give my Super Bowl pick. So I have NFC: Tampa Bay, Green Bay, Seattle, Philly, division champs. Wild card: New Orleans, Dallas, Arizona. AFC: Indianapolis, Baltimore, Kansas City, Buffalo. Wild card: Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Denver. And then I have Tampa Bay and the Baltimore Ravens in the Super Bowl. And there's a reason why I'm wearing the hat I'm wearing tonight. I don't think I need to expand on that too much.
There you go. I see Tampa Bay making a big run, if not winning the bowl. My predictions, the one I will give you a surprise is by hook or by crook. I guess basically if they beat Miami and New England in their division to be a wild card, I'll give the Jets a run at sneaking in at either like a 7-9 or 8-8 record. Who knows? We shall see with the extra team that might sneak them in. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, Tampa. I think the NFC is pretty open this year. San Fran will take a step back. I mean, who knows? They could get back there, but the quarterback play is going to be pivotal. Now you have Brady in the same division as same league as the conference as Garoppolo. So being back in the shadows, I can see them somehow maybe making the championship game, and Brady would teach the former apprentice a thing or two in the big game. So should be interesting. AFC, I don't see Baltimore doing it. I know, I just see them maybe getting by a round, but Jackson just having still either thrown a crucial pick in a playoff game or turn the ball over, and I don't see anyone being Kansas City until they could knock them off their pedestal. I could see a KC, Tampa, or KC, who knows? The other two teams that pop in my head is either Green Bay or the Saints, the two. So we'll see. One of those three teams against Kansas City is my pick, and I got to check out the odds to see if it's worth investing in any one of those teams to win the big dance.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a pretty good trend each year when it comes to top seeds in each conference. The top two seeds generally are the teams that make it, either the 1 seed or the 2 seed. This year it's a little bit different where there's just the 1 seed. So I think that's even more pivotal this year of who gets the 1 seed, just in terms of having the home field and getting to the Super Bowl. So I mean, I think that there's 4 teams who separate themselves a bit just roster wise and with quarterbacks and coaching, and Tampa Bay, Baltimore, Kansas City, and New Orleans. Unfortunately, New Orleans and Tampa Bay are in the same division. So I think whoever doesn't win that division, it's a much tougher road. You got the extra playoff game. And you have to go on the road. So I think it's a little bit more difficult. I don't see, that a road where that wild card team makes it in this new scenario with the playoffs. So I like Tampa Bay winning that division, and in the end, I like them to not only win the NFC but win it all.
There you go. I'll stick with KC, and it's tough to do back-to-back, especially this day and age, but maybe Andy gets timeshares, another one under his belt with Mahomes if staying healthy, but be interesting to see a Mahomes Brady type of Super Bowl one last time, and maybe who knows if Brady wins, maybe he retires on a winning note, but I think he's signed for 2 years, right?
Yep.
And on that note, we'll leave with.
Do you think someone we know would still be upset by the move if they win the Super Bowl this year, or do you think they would rather have a rookie?
No, I mean, the one thing I found interesting today on the radio is saying how Belichick never complimented Tom Brady when he was in New England. Not that he needed, and he's ranting and raving the last month about Cam Newton too. So that leaves you with one thing though too. It's almost like that makes me and a guy like Adam Gase do this.
Yeah, Cam Newton stinks.
Yeah,
we can end the show on that. Cam Newton stinks.
And without further ado, we will maybe see you next Wednesday night for NFL preview show. If not, we'll see you back in 2 weeks. For Brandon Gazzara, I am Matt Zuccarello signing off. Go Islanders, and see you in a week or two.
Thank you for watching the Sports Box. Follow us on Facebook at Sports Box Show, Twitter at Sports Box Show, Instagram at The Sports Box Show. Find us on YouTube and join Outside the Box, our Facebook sports discussion group. The Sports Box is brought to you by our friends at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and use promo code THEBOX at sign up for 10 points. See you next time.